Hey, what's up followers? Dave here from CNC3D. So in today's video, we're going to be talking about a really handy feature that you do have in our CNC3D Commander software. So for those of you that have had your CNCs for a while, at one point or another, you may have encountered an alarm 2 issue, which basically means that you've requested an access to move outside of the travel limits of the actual machine. So this is probably by far one of the most common alarms that you will encounter when using your CNC. So we're going to talk about a handy little tool that's built into Commander, which will hopefully help you be able to mitigate this issue. So let's just jump straight into it here, and we've got the IP address loaded in here for one of our Nighthawk scribe controllers, which is connected to one of our UCarve CNCs. And what you will notice is on the Run Job tab that we're on right now, you have a Load Job button here, and this is for option 1 if you're streaming, and this current setup/info button is grayed out. Now underneath here, you've got option 2, which is run a job stored on the SD card of your controller. So what we're going to do, we're going to click on one of the jobs that's already loaded onto the SD, and then on the right hand side you'll notice you have this handy setup/info button. So if we go ahead and click on this button, what you'll notice is on the left hand side here, it'll give you some diagnostic information about your job. So the first thing at the top here is the total lines of the job. So this is how many actual G-code lines were in the job itself. Now underneath here we have your width X and your length Y, where it will actually give you the dimensional information about your actual job. So this is the maximum amount of travel that we've detected on each axis when we've gone through and parsed this job. And then underneath here you have your job 0 offset, which for this particular job is at 0 millimeters, and the same for the Y as well. Now basically what this is referring to here is this is referring to, from the job 0 position, any motions that occurred in the negative plane. So for example, with this job, taking a look at it, we can see that it's 160.333 mil by 115.384 mil, and the job offset is both 0 for X and Y. That means that all motions that occurred on this job went towards the right hand side and also went towards the rear of the machine. Now if you were to, for example, in your CAM program, ask it to start the job in the middle of the actual job, so where the 0 position would be in the center, then we would probably expect these numbers. So here you would probably see something like -80 or something like that, because this is 160, so it would be negative half of this number here, and then the same for the Y as well. So this would be something around, -62 or something like that. Now, a very common cause of the dreaded alarm 2 issue is also the safe Z, and most commonly this is what we do see as probably one of the most common issues that will cause an alarm 2. So if you take a look, the total height of Z is 8 millimeters. That means we've detected that the maximum amount of travel that's occurred on the Z axis was 8 millimeters, and underneath here of that, the job safe Z was 5 mil. Which basically what that means is that from your 0 position, which you would have set when you started your job, we've actually raised up 5 mil in order to be able to travel over the stock. So if, for example, you had multiple shapes that you wanted to cut out of your job, it would actually raise up the 5 mil, travel over and start cutting your first shape, and then raise up to that 5 mil above the 0 and go to the next position. And we can see that the maximum cut depth is 3 millimeters. Now underneath here, you also do have your estimated time as well. Now, the good news about using Commander, and if you do have a Nighthawk, is that if you do encounter an alarm while you are running your job, we'll actually tell you exactly what line that actual alarm occurred on. So, for example, we had a case the other day where a user was experiencing an alarm 2, and the problem was on line 7. So we can actually click on the View G-code button here, and it will actually give you all of the G-code within your actual job. Now, if you take a look down the bottom here, it'll tell you what current line you're on. So if we click here, we can see that this here is actually line 7. So you can actually observe and see exactly on this line what had caused the issue to occur. So this is a really handy tool when you're basically going through trying to work out the reason why you may have received an alarm 2, and more often than not, you will find it's usually either going to be the job safe Z, or potentially that you didn't factor in that you may need to allow enough space towards the left of the bed and towards the front of the bed for you to be able to actually complete your job. Now, it is handy for you to also go through and do this before you decide to prepare and do an outline trace, just in case your machine does end up hitting those soft limits again, which it definitely will while you are actually doing that trace as well. So this obviously works in the case where we have SD card files stored on our Nighthawk controller. Now, this does assume that you do have our job sync system in play, where Commander knows essentially what the details of your job actually is. Now, if for some reason you may be not on Wi-Fi, you might be on, say, Bluetooth or USB, and you are copying your job, so you're taking the SD card out of your Nighthawk, you're loading your jobs on there, and then you're running them through this list, you may not have job sync enabled. Now, if that is in fact the case, you won't be able to use job sync if you are on Bluetooth or USB. It only does work on Wi-Fi, but as a workaround for this, you obviously have the file stored locally on your machine. So what you can do is you can basically click on load job up the top here, and we're just going to click on this test job here. And basically, you'll see that we have now the ability to click on this setup/info button. So if we go ahead and do this here, again, we have the same information that we had before when we were taking a look at the SD card job. And you can also choose to actually view this G code as well. So this is a really handy feature for you to be able to go in if you do encounter any alarms, for you to be able to take a look at a specific line. So that way you should theoretically be able to determine exactly what has caused it. So in the case of this specific job, you can see here that we've got a couple of these tool change commands in here. So for example, with the Nighthawk, it may not like having this T0M6 in here. In fact, most of the time it probably won't, because it doesn't know how to process these lines. So that can actually return some errors and also alarms. So very quickly you can determine that this is the actual line that may or may not have had the issue in your job, and then you can look at addressing that further. So that pretty much covers all of the functions that we have here within the setup/info window, and hopefully will allow you guys to be able to troubleshoot, specifically Alarm 2 issues, but a variety of other issues as well, by you having all of the dimensional information of your job right here ready for you to go. So I hope this video has been helpful for you today, and we're going to continue to pump out some really good content in the near future. So stay tuned, guys, and have a fantastic Christmas.